I got my first missions work experience in 2009, November of 2009, with Doug Hammett in Botswana, Africa. And it was a privilege to have been there and work with him at that time. And with that time, it trained me a lot better. Sorry for the teachers at Bible college. It trained me a lot better through experiences and remembering how to deal with certain situations. That's what we're going to go through a little bit this morning in missions work. And we're going to start in John chapter 6 and verse 59. These things said he in the synagogues as he taught in Capernaum. This is Jesus. Many, therefore, of his disciples, when they had heard this, said, "This is a hard saying. Who can hear it?" When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples murmured at it, he said unto them, "Doth this offend you?" Now, a couple months after Pastor Weiss left, we had an issue. I know you've been getting updates on the radio station, but not necessarily a whole lot on the people that we are working with there. So I just thought I'd update on one instance, and this is just the verse we just read here. But that picture there, that's Shane. This is your winter getaway picture here. So this is the Atlantic Ocean. We're meeting on the beach. One morning, this was with our main group, and they made those benches there by themselves with their own money there, but we were meeting at a place where we were meeting for free, and then one morning, they came and told us, this was the Sunday morning before the service, you can't meet here anymore. What do you do? If you were in that situation, what would you do? This is our main group of people. Most of our guys are there. Our key men were there. Most of these Christians haven't been saved for more than a couple months. So this was shattering for them. Now, it's easy for me to sit back and to say, oh, this is just a trial. But not necessarily to convince them, but dealing with those people at that time. And that's what I'm going to go through here. And a lot of you have heard some of this stuff this morning. Some of you are new here and haven't. So I can't assume that all this has been heard before. But with this group of men, they have never gone through really a trial before yet. They just gotten saved. They're just learning the Bible. Some of them don't even know all the books of the Bible yet. So this is what we're going through. And in Africa, everything goes exactly according to plan all the time. But our key goal is to see Liberian churches established. Now, that would be easy to go over there with $1 million and say we got some churches planted. Get some buildings, offer some food to people to come to the church services. They would come, you would have the building full in a heartbeat. They love their food. There's one denomination over there that when the denomination comes from Nigeria. So when those supporters come from Nigeria, that church actually buses people in from the outer perimeter of the capital to fill that church, to show them how well the church is going. And it's nothing close to our denomination. But in this situation, do we help? Now, Liberia is a place where most people make $1 per day. $1. How can they afford their own place? We don't go there to give them financial help. And it's very hard not to do that, seeing how poor they live. Most people live there in an 8 by 12 house, 8-foot by 12-foot house. They have a dirt floor, and the majority of them in the country, not necessarily people we work with, they don't have a job. About 25% of the population has a job. So what do we do in this instance? What would happen if we help? Well, that would create, first and foremost, a dependency on the missionary. And as most of you know, that's not what we are looking for. That would give us more control over the situation. We would get to keep probably almost all the people. And, that's a big pitfall, if you will. Whereas you're trying to keep the people, you want them to learn the Bible, but as we see here, even with Jesus and his disciples, he told them some truths. They were hard sayings. So he didn't try and keep all of his disciples, nor did he take after the disciples that left, say, "Oh, please come back to me." He didn't do that. But creating that dependency, it creates low growth Christians. It creates low commitment on their part. And it also creates hearers only. The Bible says we need to be creating doers. So that's what would happen if I were to go and to rent a building for them after getting kicked out of this one. Now, that beach picture, we met there for 7 weeks. And it was hot. Me and Brother Lindsay and Brother Shane, we all looked like lobsters after coming back from the beach. So it's very hot. There's 100 to 110 every day there. So we had summer while you guys were having winter. So, and that's a little snippet there to come over if you're tired of the winters here. But what would happen if we don't help? What would happen? There would be little dependency on us, on the missionary. And that's what we want in missions. But it comes with little control. And also less people. Now, we're not there to heap people to us. We're there to get the gospel out to as many people as we can. Now, God does the saving. He brings those people. And with that little dependency on the missionary, yeah, they depend on us for getting stuff from God's Word. But it creates high Christian growth. Because when their prayers were answered on that 7th week, we were all praying about a meeting place. There was a despondent lady walking along the beach, and we had many people come and join our service there. One was a security guard, actually from the Catholic Church right next door. He actually brought some of the chairs from the Catholic Church to our service. So don't worry, we sanctified the chairs before we used them. But it creates a high growth, but also creates a high commitment to those individuals that continued coming when it wasn't the best of times. Now, as we continue reading in John chapter 6 here, in verse 66, from that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then Jesus said unto the 12, will ye also go away? Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. And we believed, and we are sure that thou art that Christ, the Son of the living God. See here, this is those 12 individuals. Those were the committed ones. They showed commitment. And retrospectively, we would see later on, these were the ones with the highest growth, Christians. Those that understand the truths, hold on to those truths. And for those men that stuck with us, they saw the answer to prayer in that 7th week. That lady, she used to be a Muslim lady. She came and joined to our service. And after the service, she came up and she was like, I want this church in my house. And there you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. Okay, what's your house like? Well, we went there. It was 10 times better from where we were meeting before. 10 times better. And I'm just telling you this story just a little bit because it kind of explains, if you turn to Acts now, Acts chapter 16. But she wanted this church in her house. And after seeing her house, it really opened the door for us in that community. It was in the same community. I don't know how we didn't find her before. But most of the Muslims in that country, they own the majority of the cars, the rental properties, the grocery stores there. But they only make up about 20% of the population there. But they're the richer percentage of that population because they own the gold mines, the diamond mines there, and not just there, but in other countries as well surrounding them. So they're the richer class. But about 6-7 weeks later, that lady would get saved. It was a Wednesday. I remember the day. I remember the message. She would get saved, and before, she would never smile. After, you can't wipe a smile off her face. And that was just the start. She had an older son. He's graduated high school. Her second oldest daughter graduated high school this year. Her whole family is saved today because we waited. We waited. Now, that little dependency also creates doers of the word, not just hearers only. Let's go to Acts chapter 16 and verse 5. And so were the churches established in faith and increased in number daily. Now when they had gone throughout Phrygia and the region of Galatia and were forbidden of the Holy Ghost to preach the word in Asia, after they were gone to Asia, they essayed to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit suffered them not. Now in verse 6 here, I'd like to point out forbidden there. Forbidden. That's an action word there. It means there's something actively stopping them from going into this certain place in Asia. Now, if you look at the times, during the Roman times here, they weren't in full control of Asia at this time, where this was. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe it was pestilence. We don't know. But at this time, When this was going through, we're just like, well, maybe the Lord has shut the door to this community. Maybe he wants us working with another group. We have several Bible study groups going on at this time. Several. And they range from, 5 people to 25, 30 people. So there's many other groups, many other directions we could have gone. But here, and this was maybe a test of trusting them, trusting us, trusting God through us at this time. But as we continue down to verse 9 and 10, a vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia and prayed him, saying, "Come over into Macedonia and help us." And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us for to preach the gospel unto them. And we kind of know this story where they would go there, the cell, Lydia, the cell of purple. And so often, sometimes we look at the men, the key men, but here, God would use a lady in this situation to reach the family. Now, her husband, this lady in Liberia, her husband had died 10 years prior to that. And then her oldest son, 6 years. So there was heartache there. And that's a lot of Liberia. There's a lot of people that die young because of the stress of being such a poor country. They're living day by day, give us this daily bread. Some of the people that we work with, they don't eat for a day to come to our Bible studies for transportation, to pay for the transportation. So these people that we are working with, we know they're serious about learning the Bible. One of our key men, I would probably consider him the key man right now, that's going to this church near the beach here. He comes the furthest away than anybody else. He's showing that sacrifice that we are looking for in a key man. And he's young. He's very young. He's 20 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He preached on Easter at the church there this past Sunday. Not only that, but this lady that got saved, she donated land to the church. She wants to give land to the church to build a church. And it's all because we waited for the Lord's direction. He opens the doors, he closes them. And I'm telling you this just so you know kind of what's going on in Liberia. This has happened. We've been kicked out of 2 other places where we've been having Bible studies. But God has always given us a better place to meet. And he's always actually given us more people to reach. And it's so neat seeing God work over there. It's literally like Bible times. At one of the Bible studies, quite often, there's not enough room in the house. And that house will probably fit about 40 people. So people are up on the windows, getting as close as they can to hear. And it's such a blessing to see that. But it's also a little disheartening to come back and see what's going on in America. There's a lot of churches struggling after being around for over half the states. There's a lot struggling. But it's not so there. In Liberia, a lot of times we have to deal with the police, sometimes on a daily basis. This is probably the most frustrating thing for me, And being my home church, I feel like I can tell a little bit more. But we get stopped sometimes on a daily basis. And for them checking our registration, having our license, any lights out, you have your fire extinguisher, anything that they can find wrong with the vehicle or with us. Because they're trying to get money. And I can't necessarily blame them for trying, because some of them haven't been paid for 4 months. And that's some of the frustrating things that we have to deal with there. I know probably Brother Lang has probably dealt with the police over in Thailand some. But creating churches in Liberia, how is it helping? How is it hindering? That's what we have to consider there. And in Acts chapter 16, we see a door closed, but we see a door opened. But they also go through the trials. Now, all these places that we got kicked out of in Liberia, those are the places that are doing the best, Bible study-wise. There's a place called Peace Island. It's in the middle of a swamp, one of the hardest places, not the hardest place, but one of the hardest places to get to. See, in Liberia, unlike here, there's really only one paved road. Everything else is unpaved. When it rains, some of the places we cannot get into when it rains hard. So we thank the Lord and the church for those four-wheel drive vehicles that we have. Haven't gotten stuck yet. At one point, I was really close, but and I can't really wait to get back there, because all this was done before the radio station was up and running. All these places that we got kicked out of, once the radio station was up and running, I almost feel like there was a lot less trials going on. So Satan really did not want that radio station going over there. Now that radio station, it covers about 45 kilometers. I'll let you look up what that is in miles. And it covers about, I was initially saying about 1.2 to 1.5 million people. But after seeing the different towns that it does cover, it's probably higher to 1.5 to 2 million people. One of the towns was actually in the first ship that landed there in Liberia. And the majority of the town is Baptist churches. Almost the whole town. And this is like the sixth largest town in Liberia. Yet when we went there, a lot of them have never heard a clear presentation of the gospel, because their leaders were either killed in the Civil War or they fled and never came back. So the knowledge, they at one point had a good heritage, Baptist heritage there, but that has since been lost since the Civil War. A lot of things that weren't in the country before the Civil War are now there. A lot of the sins of Africa, I would say. And really it's here too. But as we see that here though, there we go. The fruit in verse there it is. Let's go to Ephesians here. Now, the elections are also coming up in Liberia, so please pray for that. But in Ephesians chapter 5, in verse 15, we see that we are to walk wisely here. 5 and verse 15. Seeing then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding that what the will of the Lord is. I'm going to stop there. These times that we're living in, they're not going to get better. They're going to get worse. The governments are going to want more control, not less. And as I look and see what's going on in Liberia, there's only so much time that I think we have there. There's been coups and overthrows of the government in 3 of the 5 Western countries in West Africa within the last 5 years. And I want to simply be as efficient as I can there. So with the radio station, I can't wait to get back there. Even though there's a lot of struggles there, living there. We don't have running water. We haven't had running water there since December of 2021, when they started doing road construction to widen the road. They cut off the water to our side of town, so we haven't had public water for a while. There is no public electricity at our place. The lines are up, but there's no transformers. That was paid for by the, I think, European Union. So there's a lot of work and a lot of struggles there. But having that radio station there works 24/7. It never gets tired. It might get, shut down for a little bit, kind of like now. But Satan does not like that. And we are to walk wisely, not as fools. We have to understand that Satan is our ultimate adversary, not the people who are trying to discourage us. But I'll tell you a little bit of the first group, that the first pastor that got a hold of us. But his church meets every single day of the year. He pulled the church out of the denomination because he saw for himself a couple years ago what they were teaching him wasn't from the Bible. So they've been praying for a couple of years for someone to come and teach them the Bible. Now, the group ranges from, 15 to 45 or 50, but it's every single day. Now, that's shameful to me. Maybe I can put this out there. Why don't we try and do that for a couple of weeks here? But the pastors can deal with that later. So, I'm just kidding. But they found us through the radio station. How many more people are like that? And we're just starting to teach them. It's only been a couple months. How many more people are there like that are in range of that radio station? And I'm telling you this to encourage you. There's going to be more fruit coming. And come over and see it. Come over and see it. May I encourage you to come, because you may not want to leave. They're the sweetest people that I've almost ever known. Even though they have almost nothing, when you walk into their house, they want to feed you. They will go a day without food in order to feed you instead of eating it themselves. They're very hospitable people. I love working there. But we need to walk wisely. We can't walk with the heart on our shoulder there. And we have to deal with situations like this. It's kind of been a while for almost all the time. There's some places where we need to move on from teaching the Bible and reach those who are more interested. Again, that time is short.